So in this video, I'm going to be installing this motorcycle exhaust on the MM212 and then making up my own custom intake manifold. So this exhaust pipe on here is the one we used in the GPS 180, and I wanted to swap it out because with all the vibration, we kept breaking the muffler off. So I just wanted to put a little bit more rugged exhaust on here. And what's cool about it, I can still run a center exhaust because we raised the bike 3 inches. So I have plenty of ground clearance, even if the pipe's a little bit bigger or the muffler's a little bit bigger. Yeah, so even with this pipe being a lot bigger, or this muffler being a lot bigger in diameter, there's plenty of room here, even with the suspension fully collapsed. I was gonna put it out on the side, but I think with the lift, I'll be able to get away with it. So I think I'm gonna use the same header pipe that's on here and just lop this off here. So I think it'll work out without this brace on here. So I'll go ahead and cut this muffler and this brace off of here. So I got all this stuff knocked off here, so now we just have a basic center exhaust to start with. And I think I'm gonna have to, might as well knock off these braces here too. So we got the nice, clean header pipe bolted on there. Center exhaust. I mean, I could just leave it like this and throw an RLV baffle or muffler on the back here. But you know, gotta be different. So probably I'm only gonna need a small section of pipe. So maybe something like that. And I can weld up a brace or a bracket between the 2 bars there, and then put a small piece of tubing. What's cool about it, just slides in there. So this pipe will slide over the header pipes, so that'll make it nice and strong. And the pipe is all the way down inside the muffler, a couple inches. So now this should slide over the pipe. All right, there. So now I'll make up a bracket. I'll hang that first, and then that way I can tack that on there and then pull the pipe off and weld it. So I have this hanger or ear that I cut off another project that'll work. I think it'll work perfect on this. It'll bolt right up to the existing bracket on there, perfect. So I got it mounted on there, and I think that'll pretty much do it to it. I got plenty of clearance here, quite a few inches, so I know the shocks will bottom out before it hits the tire. So now I will tack this up right here and then pull the pipe off and weld it the rest of the way. It's easier welding it off the bike. Okay, so I got the pipe on there, and that thing looks fantastic. I mean, it's got to be worth at least, what, 10 or 15 horse? I mean, just by the way it looks. This is going to be a 100-mile-an-hour bike before you know it. I mean, this thing looks pretty sweet. The mount turned out pretty nice. And it's got plenty of clearance there. Got to weld it up and then bolt it down so my bracket has no issue clearing the seat. I mean, I don't know how it's gonna sound, but it looks pretty sweet. Okay, now for the challenge. I'm gonna try to make my own intake manifold to move this carburetor off the side of the bike and down between the frame rails. So it's gonna be a lot better at that GPS 180 race without the carburetor sticking out here on the side. I mean, you dump the bike over and there goes the carburetor. And then last time around during that race, the carb fell off a few times. I mean, I could still use the slip-on manifold, but I'm gonna have to brace the carburetor. So I'm gonna take this carb and move it back into the frame rails, something like that. So I'm gonna have to have a curved intake from there to there. And it'll be a little bit longer too, but then the carb will be totally tucked. And then what's cool about it, I still have plenty of room with my center exhaust, so it's not gonna mess with the air filter. So let me see what I can make up for an intake manifold. I have a Ghost intake that's already curved, but it just doesn't come out where I need it to come out. It comes out to about like right here, right on the bar. So one of those curved intakes online, they're pretty much like the Ghost curved intake, so they're not gonna have the bend that I need. So I'm gonna have to come up with my own intake. So I figure I'll take this piece of 1 1/4 inch tubing. I will weld it onto my flange there. So that right there will pretty much get the carb where I want it. So the carb is nice and level right there, and it has plenty of clearance with the exhaust. So I think I'll go ahead and clean up this flange. I'll take my burr and open this flange up a little bit to match the size of the pipe. So I got this pretty much port matched, and that's a pretty good sized port on that Evolution head. Yeah, if you look at that VM22 gasket, that port's a lot smaller on a VM22 intake. It doesn't have that square VM22 port. It has a nice big round port. So I got the manifold bolted on there. So I think right about there, if I can weld that intake right there. Weld it up about right there. Okay, so I got it welded on there, and it's up at an angle just a little bit, but that's okay. So I think it'll be all right there. It's kind of away from the chain guard, which is cool. So now, last time around, like I said before, at the GPS 180, the sleeve kept sliding off at the intake with all the vibration over the 3-hour race. So I'm gonna have to run a mount from here to here. So I'll get me a piece of metal and I'll bolt it here and make up a mount for the top of the carb. So that way there's no way this thing can vibrate off. So I made this small throttle plate that goes on top of a PWK carb. Okay, so I got my plate bolted to the top for the carb, and I think I'm going to have to cut a little notch out of here just so the choke plunger will work. Cut that off right there. Cut that corner off. And then maybe I might fill that in, maybe, I don't know. We'll see. And then I'll run my piece from here to here. So I did a little grinder action to clear the valve cover. So if I bolt it about right there, plenty of clearance on the valve cover. And then I will cut it and weld it to the plate on the carb. So a couple bends, some welds, and a drill press later, and I came up with this. So I think this thing turned out pretty good. So that bolts to there, and it clears the choke. So I got my little notch cut out here. And then I got it notched for the valve cover there. So I think that'll work out. So now let me see if I can find some longer bolts for this for the top of the carb here.
A few minutes later.
So here is the finished product. So I got my bracket bolted down and this carb is on here. Nice and tight. And I put a longer sleeve on here instead of that short sleeve, so there's no chance of that coming off. And then I removed the pulse pump because there's no need for a pulse pump on this bike. As long as the bowl stays full, it's fine, which it was before in the last race. And plus that's less stuff to go wrong. The throttle works. So I'll end up throwing a fender in here. So last time around, this bike did 2.95 0 to 30 on the draggy with the short intake manifold. So I wonder if it'll be just as quick or maybe even a little bit quicker with a long intake. We'll find out. So I'll go ahead and fire it up and we'll see what that dirt bike exhaust sounds like. I think it's gonna sound pretty sweet. Well, it seems to run okay with my homemade intake manifold so far. Let me knock down a 0 to 30 real quick. We'll see if it's anywhere near 2.95 0 to 30. It did 2.94. So at least it's just as quick. Cruising up the street here. That's pretty good. Looks like the intake design's pretty good. I mean, it has plenty of top speed. Make sure nothing's falling off. The dirt bike exhaust sounds fantastic. Looks like it's gravity feeding just fine. Pretty good with this exhaust on here. So it definitely runs just as good as it did before with the short intake. I think it did 2.94 0 to 30 with a long intake, so it's just as quick. And the dirt bike exhaust sounds fantastic. It kind of sounds like a dirt bike. So there's just a couple more things I need to do to get this bike ready for that race, and I'll do it in the next video.